What's going on, guys? Evan the Dark Souls enthusiast here, bringing another Dark Souls gameplay commentary on the PlayStation 3. This is going to be a continuation of my full Let's Play series, picking up in Anor Londo right after the victory at Sin's Fortress over Iron Golem. In this video you're going to notice that there was a lot of edits through Anor Londo, because the original footage through Anor Londo was probably about 58 minutes and now we're down to 40-ish, so there's been about 20 minutes of edits, and before I get into the rest of the commentary, I want to talk about why and where those edits occurred. When I was in Anor Londo, I played in human form, because that's just how I like to do it. I like to be in human form because I like the prospects of being invaded. I find it exciting. As much as I enjoy dueling in the kiln, sometimes it's fun to get ninja'd. To me, being ninja'd is when someone invades, but they aren't necessarily built, their character isn't necessarily built in such a way, or their strategy isn't necessarily like to duel you so much as jump you. That's to say, in the kiln, you know, typically people stand, if it's a duel, they stand facing each other at the fog gate. Typically, they both take a bow, they might buff, whatever they need to do, and then they rumble, you know, and they fight, and they do get out, and that's great. When you're playing in human body form, when you're just sort of questing or whatever, you find that sometimes people invade and they try to like jump you from behind corners and stuff like that, and I notice a lot of people find that like dishonorable or unenjoyable. I love it. I get a notification when people invade. This is sometimes on the rare occasion I might not get a notification to certain circumstances by the Dark Moons, but that's all fine. I think it's exciting to get invaded by someone who isn't necessarily just there to duel so much as just to kill you. I think it adds a new level of complexity to the game, and I really think that's how invading was intended. I mean, I don't really think the developers had, like, you know, this isn't a fighting game. I don't think they were looking at the competitive community, the PvP community, largely when they were doing the creation of Dark Souls, but I was on the development team, so I don't know. But that's just my theory, and I think it holds up when you see how it works out in-game. I think it was more so intended as, like, you know, an invading mechanic, and I enjoy that. But ultimately, what winded up causing a lot of edits was the fact I did keep getting invaded, and I didn't cancel out the invasions through various methods and things like that. So as a result, sometimes people invade and hide for a long time, and I can't find them, and sometimes I sort of hold my ground and wait for them to come to me. So all of those periods of wait are edited out. There's also a couple of unfortunate deaths here. Some due to PvP and them just outplaying me, or me just goofing around a little too much. A couple deaths to some enemies here in Anor Londo due to sloppy playing. The usual Dark Souls stuff, death by invading phantoms, death by some of the more harder areas of the game. You know, it happens from time to time, and this is not my first upload of playing through Anor Londo. I think this is basically the second Let's Play on the channel, and likely the last full Let's Play, because I think that probably you guys are getting a little tired of watching through all these areas again. But that said, I'm definitely going to finish this one. And that's probably enough introduction. I'm going to go on with the actual meat of this commentary, and I've got 40 minutes, but some of that will be cut off by the boss fight. I usually don't talk through the Ornstein Smoke fight, so let's just get on to some of the topics I had planned. And also, I feel like I should tell you, be honest with everybody, I'm doing this commentary like right when I got up from night shift, so I'm still a little groggy and disoriented, but I won't have time to put out a commentary later in the day, so I decided I better just jump into it and do it now. I mean, after this I'll probably order pizza, eat, and then go to work. I think that half my dietary option is pizza, but that's okay, because I've been you know, trying to work out a little bit, run, things like that, because I realize that my lifestyle will literally result in my death if I'm not careful. But I definitely fall into that category of person that's eat what you want and exercise when you can, and if you can't, still eat what you want. Probably not a safe choice, but it's kind of the choice I decided on. You saw that before I killed the gargoyle there, I switched over to the Gold Covetous Serpent Ring, trying to get the helm or the shield to drop, because the gargoyles can actually drop their axe off their tail, a helmet, and a shield. The shield is basically trash. I don't think you'd ever wear it for anything other than, like, I don't know, Belfry Gargoyle roleplay or something bizarre like that. The Gargoyle Tail Axe is actually pretty decent. I'm not going to elaborate well in this video because it might show up on a future character build, and then I'll explain it then, so I'm not going to sort of use that material now. And then, of course, the Gargoyle Helm is fantastic. It's the lowest weight helm of 8 poise. Now, ultimately, most people, myself included, wind up just wearing 2 pieces of Havel, and that gives you the poise you need. But if you have a build that's flexible enough to use things that aren't Havels, because it's cooler, I think that's cool. I think equipping Havels instantly drops your coolness factor a little bit, but unfortunately a lot of my builds are restrictive in that without dumping unnecessary points into endurance, I would not be able to equip a lot of things I want to use due to weight limitations. And I do have to play with a minimum of 53 poise. I spent a lot of time in the player versus player arena on this game, and I love it, but I have come to the conclusion that I don't have the skill or the patience to play without at least 53 poise. I know that you can toggle swap out of stun locks like in Demon Souls, but it's something I struggle with the timing on. My response time just is slow. I could probably improve it with practice, but at least with the poise, I don't have to toggle swap as much. I usually don't go up to the 76 Giant's Armor Giggle poise. That's a little too much for me. I think 53 is a nice... oops, and that guy just jumped off the ceiling there, the walkway. I think that's a nice, like, middle-of-the-road compromise where I won't completely skip on poise, but at the same time I won't go crazy and just load up on defense and poise. Because I really don't want to be a tank, but at the same time I don't want to be staggered by, like, katanas. I hate being staggered by katanas. And as you've seen, different builds in this character hit these breakpoints in different ways. This character uses somewhat heavy weapons, so as a result I'm forced to wear 2 pieces of Havels, which is the gauntlet and the leggings, which is typically how most people reach their 53-ish poise breakpoint. I actually think it's 52, but in any case, that's how everybody gets what they need. The easiest way is just to put on 2 pieces of Havel, like I'm doing. But with that said, moving beyond my sort of poise right there, I wanted to talk a little about one of my subscribers. You know, I've been getting a lot of messages in the inbox, and I'm replying to them in the order in which they're coming in. So if you've sent me a message and you haven't had a response yet, you are getting one. I have a priority system on how I answer messages, and that is when people have quick one-liner questions about how to play the game and stuff like that, I answer those first or direct them to one of my videos that discusses what they're asking. And then I start answering like the personal requests just in the order I've received them. So I kind of figure that the people asking for help on gameplay need their stuff answered first, because I know this game can be challenging for some, and I don't want anyone to get frustrated and return the game or quit. You know, I want everyone to experience the awesomeness that is this game, so I figured that, you know, if I have a YouTube community and just other players, the more people we can sort of help through the game and keep educated, the more people that keep playing, the more people that keep playing will eventually sort of get onto the PvP stuff, and then the bigger the PvP community, the more variety of matches we can have and stuff like that. So, all in all, I'm really excited to help people out whenever I can, but at the same time, there probably is like a 3 to 5 day turnover on some of the replies to my messages, because I tend to reply to them in bulk. Like, it's not like a couple of days. I get on, respond to a message for about an hour, then stop responding kind of thing, and then repeat it maybe a week later. I don't know. But definitely, here's another gargoyle. You get to the point where you really don't need any more of the items. Objectively looking at my Dark Souls gameplay, I do waste a lot of time. And that's to say, I go around and I pick up every single item in every area on my New Game Pluses, and there's really no need, because having multiple stacks of an item is completely pointless. Really having anything beyond 1 of each item is pointless, but when you start going up to like 2 and 3 stacks of things, you're really just cluttering your item box. And I know that, yet I continue to do it. I think I have some sort of hoarding mentality on Dark Souls. And it's the fact to come up with these like bizarre fringe uses, like, well, what if I want an unupgraded set and an upgraded set? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you wear the unupgraded set if you have an upgraded set? So I don't know, but I'm even struggling to hit this gargoyle, as you'll notice. I think I was trying to cut off his tail, but there's really no point, because I cut off the tail on the other one, and I don't know if you can get a tail from both. I don't think I've ever tried, or if I have, I don't remember. I also accidentally took off my Darkwood grain ring, so I'm having to do like fat kid rolls, slow rolls. But it worked out alright. I brought him down, and he dropped his halberd and the shield, so now I have the full golem set on this character. I'll never use it, but I have the full golem set on this character. With that said, let's talk about some of the stuff my subscribers sent me in my inbox that I want to talk about in this commentary, because some of it's actually pretty exciting. first and foremost, I've received a lot of encouraging messages from subscribers and from people that are newly subscribed, and that's great. I really appreciate it. Someone had said that, you know, sometimes it could be hard to keep doing something if you don't get any praise, and I think when I first got into gameplay commentating, you know, over a year ago, you know, and I had like 30 subscribers, and I've come, you know, I'm up to 1,100, so we've come a long way, and that's great. I wouldn't be doing this still. And that was a change too. I sort of figured that I could keep doing gameplay commentaries even if I had 0 subscribers. It'd be fine. I'd just keep doing it, but you know, I don't think that's true anymore. Time has gotten tighter and tighter as I've gotten older. I'm sure everyone can understand that, and I'm sure I'll reach a break point in my life where I'll have a lot more time than I do now. That's probably when I get out of school. But until then, you know, time is scarce for me, and it's nice to know that people enjoy these. I probably wouldn't be putting these out hardly ever if I didn't feel like people actually look forward to them. So, you know, and it doesn't have to be a huge number. Even if, like, say, 50 people, you know, maybe less than that. Say, like, between 50 and 100 people actually watch these and get a lot of enjoyment out of them, that would be enough for me to keep doing them. But if I was at, like, the 0 subscriber mark after all this time, I think it'd be time to call it quits. So it's great to get those messages of encouragement. It does help me keep putting these out, and actually those messages of encouragement sort of increase the frequency in which I upload stuff. So I appreciate all those encouraging words. You guys don't have to send them through the messaging system on YouTube. I know that takes more time. I do read all the comments on my videos. I just don't respond to all of them, time permitting. But if you guys just want to, like, any kind of words of encouragement, if you just want to, like, leave them in the comments, that's cool. It's whatever you want to do. I'm just trying to make it easier for you guys. Well, that said, another subscriber sent me a message that apparently, and I did some research on this myself after I got the message, of course, apparently the Demon Souls PvP servers are staying up. Not just the PvC servers, but the online servers for Demon Souls are staying up. And then that was really exciting. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I almost went and booted up the game right that minute to get on my old Blue Blood sword build and, you know, start PvPing right there. Of course, this guy walks into a backstab. So you'll notice that there isn't any Demon Souls stuff on the channel, and yes, I am aware of that now, thanks to you, to my subscribers, that there still is an opportunity to, you know, play some Demon Souls PvP, and I enjoyed Demon Souls PvP quite a bit. But one of the reasons I haven't gone back and done so yet is the fact that, well, first and foremost, I have a lot of games I need to play right now. Like, I have so many games because I purchased too many. I really didn't have the money or the time to play all the games I bought, but I went ahead and bought them like a fool. So now I have Diablo 3, which I haven't even installed yet. I have Skyrim, which I really only have about 30 hours in, so I'm clearly not even near done with Skyrim. I have Dragon's Dogma sitting on my game shelf in the wrapper still. I've got Max Payne 3, where I'm 2/3 through the single player and just scratching the multiplayer. I've got a DOTA 2, Defense of the Ancients 2 beta key that I'm downloading on Steam at the time of this commentary, and I still haven't finished 2 of my finals, and I have like 2 weeks to do over 60 hours of homework. So clearly overbought, but summer's coming up, and I'm really hoping to have more time. And I've also got a lot of outstanding Dark Souls commentaries to do, as you all know, so a lot of things I want to do. So starting up a Demon Souls thing right now is something I'm very interested in doing, but this might not be the ideal time to do so. Oh, excuse me, I had to take a drink of the Pepsi. But I don't think now's the time I should be getting into old games, and I have all these great new games to play. Now, don't get me wrong, great games are timeless. I still play a lot of the old classic NES and Super Nintendo games, for sure. Either via emulator or via my old Super Nintendo or my Sega. So good games are timeless, and Demon Souls is easily a timeless game. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't want to try the new flavor of the month stuff. And a lot of people requested Dragon's Dogma on the channel. I don't know if we're going to go there. You know, it would be nice to get another action RPG on the channel, but at the same time, oh, that guy poised through it. Backstab me. Ow. So we've got Wrath of Gods, Poise Backstabs. Pretty good build. I like the invisibility on him. That's pretty cool. And I assume that's a Grass Crest shield that's giving him that aura. It's pretty much fighting like a smoke. Kind of neat, actually. I'm kind of at my point, or I am kind of at the point now in Dark Souls where I'm not really offended by any builds. I don't really care what people do anymore. I'll acknowledge I get a little peeved when people have like massive amounts of poise and they just go for rapier backstabs, but those can be beaten, so it's pretty much anything I lose to I know I could have beaten had I tried harder or played better. But yeah, you win some and you lose some, and I accept that now. The things that used to get on my nerves just not so bad anymore, which is a great feeling. But yeah, I did want to talk about, I've talked about Demon's Souls before and how much I love the game, but I do want to talk about a lot of the things that keep me from going back to the game, because a lot of the things they took out in Dark Souls were actually great modifications to the engine in the game, because at times they could make Demon's Souls miserable for either PvP or for PvE. I hated the grass system. For those of you that never played Demon's Souls before, in Demon's Souls to heal you eat grass, which is like an item in your inventory. Whereas the flasks in Dark Souls you have like, between 5 and 20, depending on what bonfire you rested at, how much reinforcement you've done, etc, etc, etc. 20 flasks are more than you will ever need to beat an area. Okay, well, in Demon's Souls, there were grasses, which are basically healing potions that heal, like basically healing flasks that heal at different levels of, say, your flask reinforcement. So like, New Moon Grass would heal like flask level 1, and Dark Moon Grass would heal for like flask number 7. And then, I don't remember the exact levels of power of the grass anymore, but I think that Dark Moon Grass was the final level of grass, which fully healed you. And grass also procced very, very quickly. Grass actually goes off much quicker than a flask does. So basically, you had unlimited heals, which was just crazy. You had unlimited heals that were faster than a flask, so it really did cut down on the difficulty of some areas. Which is why I think some people remember... I remember Demon's Souls as being harder than Dark Souls, and a lot of my friends and subscribers have been like, dude, that's crazy. Dark Souls is way harder. I really don't think so, but I think that's because I didn't really use grass. I mean, it's not to say I never used it at all, but I had like weird mental issues. I can't even explain why I used to do it, but I would only use like so much grass per area, or I'd only use certain types of grass, and I was unwilling to farm grass, nor dupe grass. So I didn't have like a limited supply of the high-end grasses that a lot of people did. So that really changed things. I mean, the grass system is one of the defining characteristics of Demon's Souls, I think, and is one of the defining systems that I didn't like. How you heal in these games actually has a dramatic impact on gameplay, which isn't surprising considering how much damage you wind up taking in the Souls series. I wasn't a huge fan of having unlimited quick heals that were basically uninterruptible. And that goes for PvP as well. In Dark Souls in Demon's Souls PvP, I'm pretty sure everyone heals all fight long. Very few matches I ever have where people weren't grassing their life back up, which was fun in a way because it led to some really long matches, but at the same time was frustrating sometimes, because you could just wind up in these situations where matches would go forever, people keep running from each other and healing. So you wind up in these situations where you're trying to like chase people down. So the grass system took a lot out of Demon's Souls as a game for me. I still consider Demon's Souls probably in the top 3 best RPGs, best games, period, on the PlayStation 3, particularly an exclusive. But at the same time, I really don't know if I want to go back and contend with that. Another thing I hated was the world tendency system. For those of you that didn't play Demon's Souls, once again, it was kind of like your light side and your dark side of the Force. Every time you killed an invader, your world got lighter. Whenever you invaded, it got darker. This affected the availability of items on playthroughs, and it affected how strong the enemies were in areas and things like that. It was, in my opinion, it was an awful system. I mean, it was nice having the variety of harder or weaker enemies based on what you were doing and things changing for PvP, but honestly now, thinking of having to go back and deal with that sounds loathsome. And you'll see me try to land a couple parries here, and I just get beat down by the White Knight. Silver Knight, sorry. I want to call it White Knight because whenever I think of Dark Souls, I think of White Knight Chronicles, which I purchased and did not enjoy. But I think of White Knight Chronicles, and I say White Knight, but it's actually a Silver Knight. So you'll see that's one of the edits where I edit it right back up here, right after killing the ugly gargoyle guys, the demon guys. So gonna try to get my souls back and defeat the archers. This is one of those areas of the game where I think the developers confused difficult and cheap. Now, 9 out of 10 times I get through here without dying, but every now and again when it does kill me, I remember just how frustrating this spot was on my first playthrough. Because, my first playthrough in this area, I did not have a Darkwood Grain Ring, so I couldn't, it was harder for me to time my rolls. In addition, there wasn't a whole lot of, the game was still in its infancy. We're talking the first week of release when I was in Anor Londo. So as a result, there wasn't a whole lot of YouTube videos showing effective ways to get through this spot, so this was a lot harder. So this spot will always have memories in my heart as, the most annoying, frustrating area of Dark Souls, even worse than Blighttown, easily. So once you figure Blighttown out, it's really not that bad. Once you know how to get around it and stuff, it's always an inconvenient area to go through, but I think it's a little more forgiving than the Valley of Defilement in Demon Souls. And using that to segue back to Demon Souls, so the world tendency system, it's certain things you needed pure white world tendency in order to, say you needed pure white world tendency in order to get 3 items, then you need pure black world tendency to get another 3 items. So first I'd have to go up to pure white, then die a bunch of times. Another way to lower your world tendency was to die. That's probably the most reliable way, was to die or kill friendly phantoms, things like that. So I would go intentionally get myself killed 7 times to lower my world tendency. And it was frustrating. I'm like, why do I have to take 40 minutes of my time to kill myself to lower my world tendency back down? I don't know, I thought there should have been more control over that, an item that lets you adjust it, or you could alter it in a Nexus, because Demon Souls was not it didn't flow like Dark Souls where each area is connected. Each area was sort of stages. In fact, they were not sort of, it was actually stages, and you'd warp to different stages. And that was pretty fun. I had no problem with the split world. I think it allowed them to create a really diverse kind of world when the areas don't necessarily have to tie together very much. Whereas here you have to have somewhat natural transitions between areas, I think. But, I don't know if in the next Souls game they'll go to a seamless world or a stage world. I'm really okay with either. I don't really think it dramatically changes the gameplay. But, as I was saying, it sort of resulted in this situation where I was I didn't really want to PvP as much because I was afraid, I don't want to screw up my world tendency because I want to get all these pointless items that I'll never use. But I want to get them anyway, so I just wound up being a nuisance, and it's one of the big things that keeps me from going back and doing playthroughs is the fact I just don't want to deal with world tendency. Another thing was I didn't want to deal with farming the healing items or buying the healing items. It just took a lot of souls and time, and this game has a lower grind than Demon Souls. Finding some of the rare stones in Demon Souls can take a couple hours of your life, which, if you're an MMO player, something like that, and you were used to grinding, not a big deal, and I've played a lot of Grindfest games before. I sort of enjoy them, but at the same time, now I just don't want to take the time to grind stuff out, and I think a lot of gamers are getting that way. Particularly gamers that have grinded out a lot of games before. This kind of at the point now where they're just grinded out. At least that's how I feel, so I'm glad that Dark Souls minimized the amount of grinding you had to go through. Another thing I sort of keeps me from going back to Demon Souls, so far we've got the grass system, and the way healing works, we've got the world tendency. The crystal geckos, which are in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, are frustrating in Demon Souls. Largely because in Demon Souls, if you miss the gecko, you don't get another shot. Geckos appear repeatedly for each time you've killed a boss in a stage. So if you've killed 2 bosses, that'll spawn 3 times. Once naturally and twice for the boss deaths. So every time you miss one, it's gone forever. So sometimes you wind up in these situations where they put the geckos in really hard to reach locations, and only certain characters are really built to kill all the geckos at once. And that is frustrating. I can't begin to explain just how annoying it is when you need some stones and the geckos are gone. That's just so frustrating. You have to go to New Game Plus for more geckos to appear. Now, of course, there's other places you can farm, like stones and supplies to build weapons and stuff, but it still just results in more grinding, and for some reason I beat myself up whenever I miss geckos. So I don't look forward to going back and dealing with the geckos. And not a huge deal. A lot of these issues I talk about in Demon Souls were ultimately, basically, I don't want to say fixed, but duping is how people basically came to cope with these. Oh, I just get beat down by this guy. I'm not sure what weapon he's using. That's a resined, I think, katana, but I was surprised at how much I got poised by that, and then I just got beaten down, so hardly even a match. I think that I could have done a lot to win that match. I could have thrown parries, I could have just put some distance between he and I could have just swung away. Pretty much everything I did was wrong. I pretty much panicked and just got beat down. And I feel as though if I got a rematch with that guy, I think we might have a good battle. I might be able to take him, but unfortunately there is no rematch system unless you get invaded by them again, so I do not get invaded by that same player, but I do get invaded by other players, which is one of the reasons the Anor Londo commentary ran so long, was because there are a lot of invasions in these videos, a lot of mishaps, as I said at the start of the video. But sort of wrapping up my Demon Souls discussion, duping became the norm on Demon Souls, at least as far as I could tell, at least for the PvP community. I think the bottomless box glitch has kind of made that true on Dark Souls as well, but on Demon Souls I was pretty sure 99% of all players that were doing continual PvP bouts were definitely duping like crazy. And it wasn't the fact that they were duping the items they needed to build the characters or the souls they needed to level up, but they were actually like duping like the full moon grasses and all the best healing items. So it's basically like people in here now are duping like 99 divine blessings. It's not quite as bad as a divine blessing, but it's still kind of at that point where, you know, people are duping, and there's just a lot of that going on in Demon Souls, and that's never going to go away. I mean, I can live with that. I still think Demon Souls is a great game to PvP on, but it's just I compare it to Dark Souls a lot, which I think is a natural comparison, and both games definitely hold a special place for me, but I think that in terms of playing with less hassles and playing with just, I guess, a better PvP engine would be Dark Souls, and Dark Souls PvP engine has a lot of issues with it still, but less than Demon Souls, I think. And so I definitely would be interested in going on. I don't think I'll ever do a Let's Play of Demon Souls in this channel. Maybe like a 10,000 subscriber celebration or something like that if it was requested, but unless there was some kind of special event, I don't see that happening. I do see myself doing a couple PvP matches on there. I still think I have a couple built characters, like a Blue Blood Sword build, which is 11 in the game, obviously. I think I still have a BBS build, and maybe some other, maybe like a bad meat cleaver build I could play around with. You know, just some odds ends. But since we're on the topic, one last thing I want to rant about on Demon Souls that I just couldn't stand, other than like farming rare materials and things like that I previously mentioned, is, oh man, probably one of the most frustrating things for me was deleveling. How deleveling works is, so your soul level, say 80, and then you could get soul sucked, which was a maneuver one of the bosses had that he used kind of sparingly, and a maneuver that other players could learn on New Game Plus, where they hit you and it takes a soul level from you, and actually it de-levels your stats. And the reason that is frustrating, because I never had anybody playing the Souls game with me. You know, Dark Souls is far more mainstream than Demon Souls was, and as a result, I didn't have any friends that were playing Demon Souls, and if they were, they quit out of difficulty long before they got to the point where they have a soul suck spell. So a lot of characters wanted to have, pretty much, because, you know, Demon Souls over Dark Souls, Demon Souls actually had like mana, instead of like, you know, you equip 2 stacks of Wrath of God, so you get 6 Wrath of Gods. No, in Demon Souls, you actually had a mana bar that you could replenish by eating spice. It's like a flask, really. It's a flask for mana. And I kind of enjoy that. I like being able to spam and having, you know, unlimited, you know, being able to play a full caster mage without a support weapon, much easier than in Dark Souls. But, excuse me, without getting into a huge discussion about mechanics, one big thing of that was a lot of characters would want to have a couple spells in their character, since, you know, the requirement was MP and not attunement slots, and it's just a completely different way of doing things. And in order to buy spells, you had to have a magic of 10. One of the sages, I can't remember who sold them, but one of the NPCs would not teach you spells unless you had at least 10 magic. And the reason was so frustrating, because you probably didn't want 10 magic on your character so much as you just wanted the spells. So basically the optimal way to do it was to get up to 10 intelligence or magic. It's been a while since I played Curly, but you wanted to get 10 of the particular prerequisite stat, then he'd start teaching you magic. You'd buy all your magic from him, and then you'd have somebody soul stuck you down. And that's how you made the optimal level. It lets you save like 4 soul levels in magic typically. So that was frustrating for me because I didn't have anybody to soul suck me, so I had to go like on forums and try to find people to soul suck me. And there's definitely a community, there probably still is, that'll help you with it for sure, but it's just really inconvenient, and I didn't want to waste soul levels, but at the same time, I didn't really want to go through the process of de-leveling. So I wound up trying to make character builds that didn't need to go through the de-leveling process. But as it turned out, a lot of the optimal builds actually did utilize the de-leveling service, even if it was only for like 4 levels. And that kind of took a lot away from the game for me. Like, you know, that's the thing with games for me. I noticed that minor things can actually wind up ruining a game for me when they just kind of build up. Now, that did not happen with Demon's Souls. You know, I definitely love the game. For how much time it's been talking about just in this commentary, I clearly love the game, but it doesn't change the fact that there were some inconveniences that stick with me to this day, clearly. And I still remember them, and I still don't really appreciate having to deal with them. And I just have become used to a lot of the, I guess a lot of the conveniences that came with Dark Souls. Just like the Call of Duty series, which I know a lot of people on this channel aren't real big on, but some people are, at least everyone's familiar with it. You know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is the first Call of Duty where I can customize my kill streaks on each class. And that's something I was screaming for on pretty much all of Call of Duty. Even on COD 4, you know, I didn't even own COD 4, but I was playing COD 4 with my friends. I was saying, like, dude, why can't I just you know, didn't have you have customizable kill streaks. So on COD 4, I was saying, why can't I have customizable kill streaks? And on Modern Warfare 2, I was saying, wow, these customizable kill streaks are great. Why can't I, you know, why can't I have different ones for each class? Then on Black Ops, I was saying, I can't believe they didn't put that in. And then we get all the way to, you know, Modern Warfare 3, and they can finally put it in. And it is in, and that's great, but unfortunately I hate everything else about Modern Warfare 3. So I pretty much I want to play Modern Warfare 3 over Black Ops sometimes just for some of the conveniences in the engine. So, you know, it's not difficulty in games that actually bothers me, it's just the inconvenience in certain things that bother me. I enjoyed that duel right there, not because it was particularly challenging or it was long or skill intensive, but sometimes I just love it when I get those perfectly timed roll attacks. Like just roll forward and nail them right in the nick of time. That's something I enjoy. All he could really do there was try to toggle out of the bashes, but he didn't pull that off, and that's okay, that happens, you know, imperfect world. It's also kind of mad I didn't get the backstab on that guy right there. When he staggered, I was trying to get behind him and backstab, and it didn't happen, which frustrated me. And that was poor stamina management right there. I probably could have beat him had I managed my stamina correctly. But, in any case, as I was saying, convenience can mean a lot to me in a video game. It's not a matter of difficulty, once again, it's a matter of just not having to deal with stupid stuff. And this guy's turtling behind his shield pretty good. This is where just a shuttle will be nice, just to quickly finish him off with a shuttle. You know, here I am trying to pyro him down. He's trying to roll behind me and get the I win backstab. And I thought that, I'm really shocked that pyro touch didn't get him, but it didn't, and he's trying to get the game-winning backstab here. Now I could flask. I am questing and doing I was trying to do commentary in Anor Londo, so I thought it would have been justified to start flasking, but I decided that this so far had been a pretty close match, that I'd go ahead and try to do it without flasking. But I don't think there would have been anything anything wrong with flasking. Typically, when you get invaded, flasking's okay. If you're not trying to duel, I think flasking's not a big deal. I think if you're trying to duel and you're flasking, that's stupid. I don't necessarily think it's unfair because it's in the game, it's just stupid. But in any case, we're quickly approaching the end of this commentary because as usual, I'm not going to commentate through the boss fight. So, I appreciate everyone's time. I hope everyone enjoyed my thoughts on Demon's Souls. If anyone wants to leave some thoughts on Demon's Souls in the comments, that might be cool, so I can see how you guys remember Demon's Souls, those that played it, and those that didn't play it. Maybe you can tell me you know, how you feel about it from what you've heard. But in any case, this is the end of this one, so I appreciate everyone's time and sticking with me through a lot of play errors. Alright, I'll see everyone next time.